Have you ever guested on a podcast with hopes of growing your email list? You felt the conversation went great. Listeners have given you feedback, but then you checked your email list a few days later and nothing, or a few less new subscribers than you were hoping for. That happens, and it doesn't mean that guesting didn't work for you. And we always want to be grateful for any new women God brings our way to serve. But if we had our expectations set on a certain result to come from guesting, then maybe it's time to reset them. Last episode, we talked about picking one 90-day goal for your book marketing instead of trying to do everything at once. And if the goal you picked was growing your email list, then guesting on other people's podcasts to start relationships with new to you readers is a great way to do it. But let's walk through how it works best so you know what to actually expect. Starting with our reader relationship framework you've been hearing about, which is reach, relate, remember. So first, reach. When you guest on someone else's show, you're reaching women who have most likely never heard of you before. Not the same women who already follow you, not the same women on your email list already, brand new women God puts in your path. That's so powerful, but it also means that she doesn't know you yet. She found you because she trusts the podcast host who invited you on to be a guest. So the first thing happening in your interview is simply just an introduction to you and your topic. That's how you're reaching her. Then next is relate. How are your talking points and interview questions relating to her struggle? This is where the interview itself does the work. You've got, 30, 40 minutes to let your new to you reader hear who you are, what you believe, how you can empathize with where she's at because you've been there yourself, how you can help her, and what resources you have to share. In this case, your email list or freebie. That's a lot for one interview and one reader to take in. Not that it can't be done, but I think growing your email list works best when it's a super niche audience and your freebie is both a timely resource and it relates to the topic of your interview. So it's a natural next step for listeners after hearing you. And I think about an author I worked with a while back as she was prepping for a book launch. And her new book was about suffering and, difficult life circumstances. And it was written for a much broader audience than her past books, which were written just for moms. But with her goal to grow her email list months ahead of her pre-orders and book launch, we went looking for podcasts that reached moms specifically because that's where her existing freebie lived. And it was easy for her to relate to moms and share from her heart and let new to her listeners get to know her before ever mentioning her book. And since her goal was growing her email list, not selling her book, it felt like an easy next step for listeners to sign up for her freebie as it related to what they just heard and they had a strong desire for the freebie. Then when book launch came, she could focus on serving her email list and inviting them to the book. So that's how relate works. You're relating to the struggle your listener is going through and letting her experience enough of how you can help her to decide she wants more. Now, remember, you get to the end of your interview, and if our only call to action is go buy my book, we might miss out just as our reader relationship is getting going. Because often your listener on someone else's podcast isn't ready to spend money on a book from someone she just met. Or maybe she just spent her book budget on last week's book that their guest was promoting. But we still want her to remember us as somebody who can help her even if she never buys a book. And if you invite her to something free, something that helps her right now with the exact thing you were just talking about, she has a low pressure way to say yes and stay connected to you. And podcast episodes are incredible because they don't expire, and your new to you reader might hear your interview 2 months from now or even 2 years from now, long after your launch buzz is gone, but your email list is still going. But y'all, we can't ignore the fact that some listeners are going to hear you. They're going to love what you said, but they still aren't going to be ready or flat out don't want to join your email list. Giving up our email address, it seems like a much easier ask, right, than for money to buy a book. But maybe your listener was in the middle of a walk while she's listening. She didn't stop to look at her phone. She might be like me. She stopped to pick up the poop, right? Because the dog's on a walk too. Maybe she had another podcast already queued up to start right away. I know that's how mine are set up. Maybe she just wasn't in a place to even make a small decision like signing up for something. Or maybe she signed up for too many freebies in the past and has been burned by the selling that comes after. Oh man, have I fallen into that one. That's okay though. I want you to know that it's nothing against you or your freebie. It just means that this new relationship needs one more touch point, or maybe a few more before she's ready. So, next episode, we're going to flip this around and we're going to talk about growing your email list as a podcast host on your own show. Because when she's not ready to join your email list the moment she hears you as a guest, having your own podcast gives her a place to come back to. An easy yes for listeners as she's already listening in a podcast app. Even just a short 6-episode podcast, what I like to call a short stack, can give her a place to go where she can hear you again and again until she's ready to join your list or buy your book or both. And that's what we're saving for next episode. Thanks for tuning in today to Book Marketing Mania. And as always, I'll be there for you next episode to help you build reader relationships one podcast at a time. See you then.